we would like to go ahead and proceed on the formal remarks here. I am Mingling, and I'm very honored to have the opportunity to co-organize and co-chairing the events over today and tomorrow, the next couple days for Ashok Agrawala. We are here to celebrate the accomplishments of Professor Ashok Agrawala for his more than 50 years of service at the University of Maryland at College Park in the Department of Computer Science. Ashok received his Ph.D. in Applied Mathematics in 1970 and joined Maryland in 1971. As an academic scholar, Ashok is considered a leading authority in many areas of system and networking. While he started his Ph.D. and dissertation research in pattern recognition, my understanding when I was looking over his publication, his research area spanned over 15 different subjects. It's truly an amazing accomplishment over the span of 50 years. So Ashok actually joined the department before the computer science department was formally founded in 1974. So in fact, the department is going to be celebrating its 50th anniversary in a couple of years as well. So anyway, without further ado, I would also like to introduce the host of this very special event, our department chair and Elizabeth Elite Chair of Computer Science Department and Hello with Professor Matthias Rieger. Matthias?
All right, thank you, Ming. Good evening, everybody. It is my great pleasure to welcome you tonight to this celebration of Professor Ashok Agrawala's 50th anniversary at the University of Maryland. What a monumental and truly awesome achievement this is. I just want to congratulate you, Ashok, for this achievement. Maybe this is the first time tonight, and I hope there will be many more rounds of applause for this truly amazing achievement. Congrats. And I'm also going to admit right here that I wasn't even on this planet when we started on the UMD campus. So I'm so thrilled that all of you, including alumni, current students, former and current faculty members, friends and family, are gathered here tonight in our beautiful Elite Center for Computer Science and Engineering to celebrate Ashok. Thank you for coming, and I hope you will all enjoy this fantastic event. This building is the home of the Computer Science Department that today educates more than 3,000 undergrad students, more than 400 graduate students. We are graduating about 800 students with the Bachelor's of Science and Computer Science every year, and it's simply an amazing place to be, to work, to contribute to launching so many successful careers. And Ashok has had an amazingly huge part in this over these 50 years and has impacted so many lives and kick-started so many careers here that we are very, very proud of this, that we can continue this today in this building and in this department. This event wouldn't be possible without the tireless work of the organizing committee, including Ashok Agrawala, who will be introduced in a minute, Professor Ming Lin, who just opened the event, and also Miriam Friedman, our event coordinator in the department. Thank you, everybody. And Miriam is over there. She has been welcoming you when you came in and provided you with your name tags when you arrived. All right. So I'm very excited about this party tonight, and I hope you will enjoy it very much. Thank you.
And as Matthias mentioned, this is these two, couple of days of events really is truly an effort by the department personnel and also Ashok Agrawala. And so I would like to go ahead and introduce Ashok Agrawala. Ashok Agrawala is actually one of the first few PhD students this department graduated. And he's, in fact, one of the first few PhD students of Ashok Agrawala. And he's currently on the board of visitors for the College of Computer Mathematics and Natural Sciences. And he has been tremendous, coming in with his input in the organization and planning of the workshop, the technical workshop, which will be held tomorrow. In addition, I just want to mention that he is also a very, very successful company and the CEO of A&T Systems. So he carried that experience and entrepreneurship to make these events very, very a memorable one. So I'm going to go ahead and hand over to Ashok.
Thank you, Ming. You're too kind. All right, let's get started. Please feel free to take a seat or something, and we will get. What we're going to do is, remember, I think I gave a heads up to everybody. If you haven't received my email earlier, my heads up is that tonight is a storytelling night. You want to hear stories, and anything you can do. Tonight is an opportunity to toast Ashok Agrawala, roast him, tell any pearls of wisdom you may have learned from him. Maybe any story, maybe make us laugh or maybe make us cry, right? So I really want to share the stories. I think tomorrow we have a little more formal programs and so forth, but tonight I really wanted to get an opportunity, and this was supposed to be a students' night, and that's why we kind of kept it a little closed and intimate in this kind of situation. So that's the whole thing. I might be telling stories here and there, but let me give you a little context of my stories. And my story is that in 1977, I landed outside the Armory on a bus, and Ashok picked me up. And I wouldn't have landed on that bus had it not been for Ashok, but that's another story, right? So
stop providing that service.
I tell you, so he provided that service. And then not only that, and then I learned that a person I got hooked up with, some of you may know from old timers, and Narendra Huja. I was supposed to be living with him, but he was doing his comprehensive exam. So Ashok said, "Well, you're not going to touch him, so why don't you come and live with us?" So I got to move in with him for the next 3 days, and got to stay. So from there, time flew pretty fast. I got 1982. I graduated, and I graduated as his student number 8. And there were two of that, there were 2 students. I still keep the lineage up to my point and a little bit behind me. And lineage was the guy named Tom Rauscher, Ph.D., then Ray Bryant. Then I think Jeff Moore, you was the next one. Then Ron Larson or Glenn, I don't know which order you were, Glenn and Ron. You had the same day. Glenn was first. And so Glenn and Ron and John and Karen. And then me, myself, and then we had 5 behind me. At least I know only 5. I've kept up with 5 people ahead of me and 5 people at least behind me. So 5 behind me was T.V. Lakshman here, and K.K. Ramakrishnan. We had Nambu. We had the guy named Mark Abrams. Mark was supposed to be in here. Oh, there you go. Mark, just in time, Mark. Great entrance. Mark Abrams and who else I'm missing? The 5th one. So we had the 5th. I kind of kept it. And by the way, tell you it's really a moment of pride for me that all 5 people ahead of me that were kept in touch with, they're here today. Let's give them applause. And out of the 5 behind me, 3 are here. 2 are here. 3 are here. 2 are here. One is on Zoom tomorrow, and 2 of them, I'm really concerned about KK. If anybody knows KK Ramakrishnan's phone number or something, contact him, just let me know.
I know he's at UCR.
I was not able to get hold of him, and now who is in South Korea, so he was not reachable. So anyway, so I'm really proud of the fact that, so I really asked all the later students to see if you can remember 5 people ahead of you and 5 people behind you, and see if you can stay in touch with those guys. It's pretty cool. It's a pretty interesting challenge for you guys. So anyway, in 1982, I graduated number 8 as a PhD student. After that, I went over to Boston area for a couple of years and found my bride, and Ashok recruited me back to Maryland. So we had won a big NSF grant for this parallel computation, and we have been really challenged with making it work, the prototype. Everybody wanted to do a study on it, but couldn't make it work. So I said, hey, maybe you can come in and work. You have a computer technology background. So came in, worked, Ashok, and I started a company consulting called ANT System. You guys get it? Agarwala and Tereja Systems Inc. So that was the company we started. We started doing stuff. A couple of years later, that became more fun, more exciting, and so I left. And a few years later, Ashok said, time for honesty here. What do you want to do? He said, I want to stay as a professor. I don't want to do this stuff that you're doing. Okay. So he decided to stay professor, and I decided to do the company. So I still run the company at what, 4 decades later. And Ashok is doing his professor thing that he likes to do. And about 20 years ago, I got pulled into being on the board of visitors. And that has been pretty phenomenal, Tim. Being on the board of visitors at the college, it was supposed to, remember initial college used to be CMS, College of Mathematical and Computers.
Physical sciences, CMPS.
CMPS, there you go. Physical sciences and combined life sciences. And if you guys are not keeping up with old timers, it's now called CMNS, College of Mathematics, Computer, Mathematics, and Natural Sciences. Thank you very much. So that's a college, and the fun thing has been that we've had the privilege of seeing some very interesting things along the way. As you probably noticed, coming to this building, the campus is not, we all broke the mold of red brick buildings with the white pillars on them. So remember, that's the way, it used to be a freshman joke saying, can you give me directions to some building? They'll say, oh yeah, just go straight and it's a red brick building with white pillars on it. So that is I got to actually see the development of this building from being somebody's imagination to the whole process. It's pretty wild. It's not an old timer. This is remember the building? One day I went to Ashok's office and when I was a student, and he was giving somebody directions. And he gave directions to our first computer science building. Remember Glenn, where Computer Science Center used to be? That building? So that, we went over there, and he walked in his office and he was giving this direction. He said, go to the Regent's Drive and make a left, make a turn, and if you see the chickens, you've gone too far, and if you see the cows, you made the wrong turn. So that was a building between the chicken. That was, I literally overheard him giving the directions like that. But this is a long ways from chickens and the cows, this building is. And if you haven't seen it, I really ask you, haven't seen this building before, please go upstairs, wander around. The classrooms don't look like anything in the classroom that we sat in, and the whole new way of learning and teaching, and go all the way to the roof of the building. And this is actually the waterfall on the top of the building. So you can sit there and meditate and or decompress. It's a beautiful place to be in. So anyway, all these stories you can see that during all this time, and right now Ashok and I live about 2 miles away from each other, 2 to 3 miles away from each other, and so I've kind of kept up with him, and so I have a lot of stories to tell, but I don't want to just hog my whole time with my stories. So one other person, when I walked into Ashok's house, there was a little girl, and she says, next week I'm going to be 4. She's going around saying, next week I'm going to be 4. And I said, and that girl is now, I grew up from being 4. She go fast forward, the mother of three beautiful children, and is a medical doctor. And let me introduce, maybe Gitika, you can share some stories from your perspective, and Dr. Gitika Patel.
Thank you. So my stories are not going to be so professional. And I wrote out my notes because I'm not as great of an extemporaneous speaker, but so here it is. I was trying to think about what to say today. It's hard, right? It's hard to sum up your dad for the last 50 years, so I'm going to try. What does it take to be the kind of professor who spends 50 years at a single institution, teaching, researching, learning, and improving the lives of so many around him? I'm sure if I go around the room, I will get many insightful answers from all of you who have known Dr. Agarwala. You may focus on his knowledge of his subject matter or his research interests, or maybe you will mention his profound patience and ability to excite interest and curiosity in his students. Perhaps his empathy and ability to negotiate the vagaries of different personalities stands out for you. Yes, all of these things define him. But I am here today to give you a different perspective. For you, he has been an amazing teacher, colleague, mentor, friend, and advisor. For me, he has played all these roles in my entire life, plus one, the role of a father. When I was young, my father was always teaching and supporting my learning and development. From early on, he shared his passion for education, not by saying, you have to learn or you have to do well, but by asking questions to make me think, to make me wonder, to engender curiosity. Why do you think that vehicle has brushes on the bottom? He asked me when I was 3. It was a street sweeper, of course. What do you think would happen if we chased that rainbow to its end? Are you ready to find the pot of gold? Yeah, I didn't like the answer when I finally did find the end of that rainbow. Do you know that the moon follows us wherever we go at night? That was one I kept believing for many, many years, although it wasn't actually true. He would challenge us to understand how the world works, make learning a game, and always encourage us to keep trying when at first we didn't get it. In first grade, he gave me a block of digits, 10 or 15 across and 8 to 10 down, and told me to add them up. How quickly could I do it without any mistakes? Once he went on a business trip and brought me back a book of logic problems. We did some together until I learned how to do it, and then I couldn't put the book down. It was fun, and even more so after a few years when I could do the problems faster than he could. When I got stuck on homework in high school, he always made sure that I understood the concept. He would take a few minutes remembering math or physics he hadn't done for over 30 years, and then methodically go through each problem, figure it out, and then take me through it step by step. He would never just do it for me, but made sure I understood what I was doing. That is how he built my confidence. As a girl who was good at math and science, my confidence never wavered in a sea of boys. From an early age, I was told that I can do anything I put my mind to, and he showed me I could by setting the example. As I grew and became more independent, he was more of a mentor and advisor, guiding me and making sure I didn't go astray. My dad was very handy. Anything that needed fixing was a fun project for him. He loved taking things apart and putting them back together, and I loved being his right-hand helper. When we were little, he built us a sandbox. He built my mom's garden beds. When I was old enough, he taught me how to change the oil in my car and change the tire. From an early age, he made sure I could calculate the tax I would be charged at the store before the cash register rang it up. He wanted to make sure I was never taken advantage of or paying the wrong amount. Or maybe he was just testing my understanding of percentages and multiplication. He made sure my brother and I were capable and confident without telling us we should be. Through his support, I learned to trust my own decisions and carve a path for myself that made sense for me. And as I have been parenting for the last 15 years, he has been like a colleague, a great sounding board to bounce strategies off when I'm not sure what approach to take. He is always able to share perspective and experience when something is new to me. Above all, his patience reminds me to take the long view and allow time for things to smooth out. And through it all, he has been and continues to be one of my best friends, supportive, loving, fun, and empathetic. My dad has also always been an extremely loving and thoughtful person. He listens to my concerns, to my ups and my downs. He gives me the hug I need. Sometimes from 200 miles away, I can just hear it in his voice. When I was growing up, he showed his love in many ways. He never came back from a business trip empty-handed. Always had gifts for me, my brother, my mom. And in high school, he knew I loved Reese's peanut butter cups. And thankfully, the local Giant had a bulk section, and they had Reese's peanut butter cups in the bulk section. So he'd pack my lunch. He'd get up at 5:30 in the morning to pack my lunch every single day, and he'd throw in a whole big handful of Reese's peanut butter cups. I think my friends might have liked him more than I did, actually, at that point. To this day, he remembers to send me flowers on Mother's Day, on my birthday, on my anniversary, because he knows I love flowers. And for the last few years, he's shown me his love by every single morning, remembering to say good morning by text. Dad also has a great love of music and technology. Since I can remember, there is always some song or other playing in the background. His taste ranges from old favorites like the Beatles to the latest Bollywood hits. And inevitably, this music has always been playing on the latest and greatest hi-fi system he could get his hands on. Growing up, we were always the envy of all our friends and neighbors because we had the latest gadget. I still remember having not just one, but two VCRs before any of our friends even had one. Why did we need two? Why would anyone need two? Because we had to make our own compilation videos from all the songs from the Hindi movies we watched. The homemade Indian version of MTV, if you will. His record collection was only outdone when my brother, who inherited his love of music and gadgets, took on the work of a DJ when he was in high school. And of course, Dad helped with that as well, lending his amp, his mixer, his speakers, whatever else my brother could possibly need. Even now, after all these years, he continues to have the newest innovations out there. He has a sampling of every type of computer, tablet, phone, whatever. He had a Tesla before it became cool to have one, and just a few weeks ago, his excitement at obtaining a new TV was palpable over the phone. Even my kids know to ask Nana, ask Grandpa, if they want to buy any new technology. I always say, call Grandpa first. Dad has always been up for some adventure or another. When I was a kid, we went on so many road trips and spur-of-the-moment excursions. Oh, let's go to Hershey Park tomorrow. Oh, okay. Or how about we drive to the World's Fair in Knoxville, Tennessee this summer? It will be great to see all the new inventions. Or let's check out the fall colors in Shenandoah. How about we visit Satish Uncle in Paris this winter break? We can rent an 8-person van and drive down to Italy and back in a week. Mind you, it was a stick shift van, and only my dad, out of all the drivers, knew how to drive stick shift. And did I mention that there were 4 children under the age of 12 in this van for all that driving? Yeah. Well, and there were very winding cliff roads, but it was an amazing trip, a trip to remember. Another perfect example of my dad's wit has to be from my wedding. My dad is always the best at giving the type of speech I'm trying to give right now. He would lace it with music, with humor, with jokes, with stories, and there's no way that I could even live up to that, but I gotta try, right? And so, to me, this is Dad. While you're being honored for 50 years at the university, I just want to thank you for being my dad and everything that you represent.
So the jokes about why we both named Ashok, it never get old. They keep getting these jokes all the time. I came to, remember 1977, I came to when the computer science department, there were 5 Indians total. I think Levine, Kanal, Ashok, Agrawala, and 3 of them are Ashoks. There's Ashok, Agrawala, myself, and Ashok single, and Narendra Huja. There's 5 of us in the whole department, and there are 3 of them Ashoks. Everybody's saying, is Ashok that common? What's going on? In any case, Glenn, you said you wanted to tell some stories.
Thank you. I'm bringing my glass. I hope you will locate a glass for the toast at the end of the couple of remarks. I think the world of Ashok Agrawala, and I think there's three great qualities that he has that I just wanted to highlight. The first is that he's very open to new ideas. To take on a graduate student like me, you have to be really open to new ideas. This is a true story. I came as a graduate student with a topic in mind. I wanted to outdo the Dijkstra mutual exclusion algorithm and make it work for networks as opposed to shared memory. No one had done that before. I wanted to do it. I didn't know how to do it, but I wanted to do it. I went around to 5 faculty members asking to be taken on as their graduate student to solve this problem. The person who said yes, Ashok Agrawala. He didn't know how to solve it either, but he was eager to work with me to be able to do something that we hadn't been able to do before. So really very open. Second, he's very demanding. He says, don't just do your best, do the best of anybody. Think about yourself as being more capable than you are. Think about your inner power that you have within you to be able to do great things. And I think, well, maybe Tony Fadell. Does anyone know who Tony Fadell is? He designed the iPhone. He designed the Nest thermostat. He said you have to be a bit of an asshole if you're going to be successful. And he means asshole in a good way. He means asshole in a kind of a get the best out of people. And that's what Ashok does. Ashok gets the best out of people. And thank you for being so demanding, and thank you for helping me to do things I didn't know I could do, and helping me succeed at doing the things I didn't know I could do. And then the last thing that I wanted to mention is that Ashok has always been very personable. That is, it's not just a transaction about computer science. It's a transaction about two people working with each other. Now, one might be a faculty member and one might be a student, but still, it's two people working with each other. And that's really very important, because when you add that personal element, the person is putting themselves into what they're doing. It makes the connection super strong and bond. And that's the reason I flew here from Salt Lake City, is because that bond has lasted that long. Please raise your glass with me in a toast to Professor Agrawala.
Hear, hear.
I'm telling the stories about the name of Ashok name. It's caused all kind of pretty fascinating stories. So one time, actually I think it was during my thesis days, I had formulated this problem, a mathematical problem, that I had no clue. It was way beyond me. So anytime I'll find some opportunity to go listen to mathematical talk, I'll go. One time, way across the campus, I go to listen to this talk, and we went around. And this was a very intimate group, and somebody said, we introduced our names. At the end of the talk, this nice, looked like this very distinguished professor come up to me and goes, Ashok, I've been so wanting to meet you. And so vigorously shook my hand. I was like deer in the headlights. So I'm walking back, I go, oh man, I hope I did not ask any stupid question. I think he might have thought I was Ashok Agrawala. So I come back, and the first thing I tell is, I find Ashok and I say, I hope I didn't ruin your reputation by asking a very stupid question on that seminar over there. So this has been fun having our name stories. Who else want to tell some stories? Neha, you want to say something? Yeah, come on.
Hi everyone. I have not prepared much, but what I would say is when I came to this country, I think I was 24 years old, and I was the first person in my family, being the only girl, and what I got from my brother and my parents was like, you should go to America when you get married. So when I came here, Dr. Agarwala has been like a second father to me, I would say. He not only taught me computer science or having the confidence in myself, but also just how to live my life. And to this date, when I have any questions, when I don't know why IRS has billed me so much, when I don't know which job to do, like he's my go-to person for everything, and I think that's irreplaceable. So thank you so much. I don't even have words to express and how thankful I am. So thank you.
So as you heard, Ashok and I live pretty close by. So last Thanksgiving, we had Ashok on the table. We love to do, Kimberly and I love to do large Thanksgiving dinner and stuff. But in COVID, it was not that large, only about 15 people or something. But so at our Thanksgiving table, we have this, if you show up, you have to play this game. We play this game on Thanksgiving. The game is, we go around the table, and we ask the question, you have to tell 3 things on this Thanksgiving. On this Thanksgiving, what are you grateful for? What do you need? And what do you want? And I know Giti's played that game, and people who are kids at 4-year-old and grown up to adults, and they played the games at our dining table. So what are you grateful for? What do you need? And what do you want? It's a pretty fascinating game. If you want to steal it, feel free to steal this one. I love to tell people this is a fun game. And Ashok was on the table last time. And when Ashok's turn came, and he said, what I'm really grateful for is, I'm paraphrasing, what I'm really grateful for is all the opportunity I've had to work with all the students in my life. So what do you want? What I want is to be able to have more students to work with, to be able to correct their minds and things. And what do you need? I think I need more students. So that's what Ashok's last need was, and want was, and what he's grateful for in the last Thanksgiving dinner. So I've been thinking about it for a little while. I said, what we can do to preserve Ashok's legacy at this university? We do something to preserve Ashok's legacy at this university. And when talking to college and so forth, we decided that we're going to endow a scholarship. And we're calling the scholarship Professor Ashok Agrawala Students Maryland Pride Scholarship. And so we're announcing that today that we have already set up the scholarship. And there's a lot to unpack on that, right? What is this? So I already told the students, it's a very important part of the name. So Professor Ashok Agrawala Student and Maryland Pride Scholarship. And I'd like to unpack some of those words in here. So let's talk about scholarship. What does scholarship mean? What scholarship are we talking about? Todd, can you roll the video for me?
Or going to college is pretty much unheard of. It doesn't happen. Like where we're from, it just doesn't. This chord is Avid. These two are National Honor Society. So yeah, I got 4 chords.
He told me in elementary school he was going to go to college. And I said to myself, well, I don't know how you're going to go.
Because when you have to think where you're going to get money from to continue your education, then you have to make decisions. Do I eat or do I pay for school?
That is my grandmother, my dad's mom. That's my mom, me, and my dad. My name is Joyce Maker. I went to University of Maryland I graduated in '78. My 2 sisters also graduated from there. My son graduated from there. We made a turtle cake for him when he graduated. My niece graduated from there, and my mother worked there for a short time. And she had a parking permit right in the middle of campus. So I got to park right in the middle. That was the best benefit. This is my mom's. She is that little teen girl right there. She would have loved to gone to college, but she couldn't afford to go. We thought, in honor of her, if we could help somebody else do that, it would really be nice. You know, the fact that someone gets the opportunity that she wished she had in her name, she would just be so happy about it.
Here comes a scholarship. Oh my God. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you.
We trusted Maryland to choose someone, and we're very happy with the person that they chose.
I was so excited.
I cried. I cried, and I cried.
I know that she was crying and she was elated. It was a burden lifted off of everybody.
Because this is what he been working for.
Studying computer science, I actually love it. I want to be a software engineer, but like somewhere in the gaming. Yeah, those are my aspirations.
Because I believe with this opportunity, it is going to open doors for him that otherwise would not have opened.
College just isn't a thing that happens where I'm from. And then let alone a scholarship, an academic scholarship for college.
They've made a way out of no way for him. And I'm so grateful. I am so grateful.
Whoever's donating, I just want to thank you a million times, because it is such a blessing.
I just want them to know that the people that they help, and I should say bless, it breaks chains, it breaks cycles, and it changes lives.
So I am so delighted.
I'm just so thankful.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
So that's the word scholarship for us. And to unpack this on the Maryland Pride thing, I invite Irene Lukoff from the College Development Office. Irene.
Thank you, Ashok. Wasn't that inspiring? Good evening, everyone. My name is Irene Lukoff, and I'm a member of the Development Office of the College of Computer, Mathematical, and Natural Sciences. And it is really an honor and pleasure to be here this evening on behalf of the college. I want to, first of all, just congratulate Dr. Ashok Agrawala for 50 years of just a legendary life and success here at the university, wishing him 50 more years of many, many more students. So thank you for all you've done for Maryland. Now I want to take a minute and tell you a few words about the Maryland Promise Scholarship. So just indulge me as I also have to read some of this. As many of you know, making higher education affordable, accessible and affordable is one of the greatest social challenges of our time. University of Maryland College Park, the flagship institution of the University System of Maryland, is the gateway to fulfilling careers and economic mobility, and is committed to educating the region's most promising students who demonstrate the greatest financial needs. I'm delighted and grateful to acknowledge Dr. Ashok, Kay, and Kimberly Teresia for their leadership commitment in establishing the Professor Ashok Agrawala Students Maryland Promise Scholarship. Thank you. What is our goal? We aim to endow this scholarship for use in perpetuity, and once the fund reaches $125,000 by March 1st, 2026, it becomes a $250,000 endowment that will provide a full scholarship to a UMD student with a preference for computer science in perpetuity. A donation to the Professor Ashok Agrawala Students Maryland Promise Scholarship before March 1st, 2026 will receive a one-to-one match from the A. James and Alice B. Clark Foundation as part of building together an investment for Maryland. The Clark Challenge for the Maryland Promise Program, as we call it for short, MPP. Established in 2017 by the Clark Foundation as part of building together an investment in Maryland, the Clark Challenge for the Maryland Promise is expected to raise $100 million to provide need-based scholarships to undergraduate students from underserved communities from the state of Maryland and the District of Columbia. MPP scholars are selected based on financial need, prior academic and extracurricular achievements, as well as interests or prior experience in community engagement and leadership. Preferences are given to those from underrepresented populations, low income, and first-generation college students. The number of scholars selected annually is based on available funding. Scholarships are renewable for up to 4 years for incoming freshmen and up to 2 years for transfer students. Most importantly, in addition to financial support, MPP scholars participate in programs and activities that facilitate their successful transition into higher education and ensure personal and academic success through graduation and beyond. Most of all, they have access to a unique network of fellow MPP scholars to engage with and take advantage of, which I think is the most, that's the essence of this program. Again, in addition to graduating with very little or no debt, no financial debt, MPP scholars have access to supplemental advising, financial literacy, counseling, community development, including internship and career guidance, visiting speakers, receptions, workshops on leadership development and academic and professional skills. MPP scholars have been awarded to 3 cohorts or 58 deserving undergraduate students so far. These UMD science terps are being empowered to become the research innovators, entrepreneurs, and policy makers who will translate ideas into solutions for the betterment of humanity. And some of you may know that we just launched or dedicated the Idea Factory, which is attached to the School of Engineering that works in concert with the department and many departments across campus to turn ideas into solutions for some of our biggest challenges. I'm excited to have the Professor Ashok Agrawala Students Maryland Promise Scholarship be part of the MPP program and legacy focused on CF students and continue the growth of this premier department, computer science department. An investment in the Professor Ashok Agrawala Students Maryland Promise Scholarship will not only help us meet our financial goals, but will also advance academic excellence, diversity, and inclusion across the STEM disciplines, which are key strategic priorities of the Pines administration and the foundational building blocks for ensuring our society's future health, economic prosperity, and national security. Once the Agarwala Students Maryland Promise Scholarship reaches $125,000, taking advantage of the one-to-one match from the Clark Foundation, it becomes a $250,000 endowment, thereby providing a full scholarship to a UMD student with preference for a computer science student in perpetuity. Contributions can be made online. We now have a link specific to this fund or via check, gifts of stock, wire transfer, or cryptocurrency, actually. University is now accepting cryptocurrency. And we have, and they will be distributed shortly, pledge forms or QR cards for you should you be interested and willing to help us meet this incredible goal. So for more information, I will be here later on. I want to thank you for your attention. Hope you enjoyed the rest of the evening, and congratulations, Professor Ashok Agrawala. Thank you.
All right, so there you have it. Hopefully, I've unpacked all those words, and you know, $125,000. I think that's our minimum goal. We really want to blow this out of it. And good news is, we already got a good head start on it. We got about $50,000 already in the fund, so we're building from there onwards. So we can really use help from everyone, and we'll be promoting this throughout this event tomorrow, 2 different events as well. And we're going to continue to promote this thing to really build a nice endowment, and all students, friends, family, everybody contribute to this stuff. All right, and that's it. That's the deal. Thank you, Joe, for your, and hopefully this is a good way to preserve your legacy, that you gave us a signal last time saying you need students. That's what's important, most important to you. All right, so we're going to open the dinner. I think it was dinner, right? So we open the dinner, and please go ahead and go grab some dinner, bring back the tables, and we'll tell more stories. We'll have a lot more stories to tell, right? Thank you.
We will continue after everyone has a chance to grab food. There are multiple stations, so starting from here, I think we have solids and Mexicans and Italian and dessert. So please help yourself. Thank you.
Is Ashok still here?
Right here.
Okay. Hi, Ashok.
Hello.
You remember when we first met?
Of course. At that course.
At the course I was giving a short course on pattern recognition.
In Adrian Rosenfeld's course on picture processing.
And a young man came up to me and introduced himself and said he was Ashok Agrawala, who just graduated from Harvard and was working in industry and intended to go to a company in, where was it, in
Dallas.
Texas, right?
Yeah.
And I said to him, look, I've joined the University of Maryland, and I think you should consider that as your next goal instead of going to industry. You have a lot of freedom to do things, and you would enjoy it. And so, what year was that, Ashok?
71.
71. And so, next thing you know, Ashok came here, and I was able to support him in the beginning, the first couple of years, and he did so well that there he is today, a star, shining star of the Department of Computer Science. He has really proved himself to be a very fantastic addition to the computer science department. And I'm so proud of him. And I'm so happy that I had something to do with bringing him here. So,
thank you, Levin.
Take care, Ashok.
I have to add something. Here. When I joined here, Levin Imam had come to this country in about 1948, was it, Levin? And when I joined in 71, Levin, who comes from the region of India, which is close to my region, he speaks the same language, Hindi, had not spoken Hindi for previous 10-15 years. So one of the things that he and I started was to remind Levin his knowledge of Hindi. And then later his sister came and all of that. So my contribution was to Levin's life that he could remember Hindi again.
That's how we say in academia, right? And then you stand on someone else's shoulders. Next speaker we have Dixon. Oh, Mohammed?
Yes.
Come on. Please, here. You want there or here?
Yes, you can here.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. I think I want to just say some short things. about Ashok and my experience with Ashok. Ashok is the history of the department. He was like a father for me. I went to his office, get advice, etc. I learned a lot from him. I don't know whether he remembers that we were in this 40th anniversary of the department. We were both organizers. I think he was the main organizer. One of the things that I learned from him, that he was very relaxed while he was doing the job. I was talking with him, we are like close, we should do that. Just be relaxed, we will do the job. He never liked micromanagement. He was also one of the people that, any students that I had, lots of them actually, that when I talk to them at who should be in the committee, I always say Ashok, and he never said no to them. And very grateful of him to come to all these Ph.D. defenses. Also, his classes were fun. When graduate students ask me about the classes I heard from the previous students, they always take Ashok's courses. They were not very heavy, but the students learned a lot from the class. And one other thing that I think learned from him, even after 50 years, he still cares a lot about the department. Maybe some people say, okay, yeah, 50 years, maybe I have done my contribution. He never stops doing more for the department. He's very brave. I wish that we will see you for 6 years and hopefully even more of that. And thank you a lot, Ashok, and hopefully see you in the future more and more. Thank you.
I told you about Ashok confusion, Ashok story confusion. So Ashok and I used to go on more mentioned about A&T system. In the early years of A&T system, because our field was performance modeling, workload characterization, capacity planning, benchmarking, that sort of stuff. So we'll go on the road and teach seminars. We'll teach in fact, we got really efficient about it. So we will teach 2-3 days seminars back to back in 1 week. And neither one of us wanted to be on the road for more than 3.5 days. So basically, in 3.5 days of investment, we'll teach a 5-day course on the road. And anyway, and one time, anybody heard that story? Maybe old timers remember this thing. Remember the show used to call Bob Newhart show? Anybody else know about Bob Newhart show? I got to tell you the context so you get the joke. So in Bob Newhart show, there was this Bob Newhart, and was the main character. But there was these three guys, and they looked like a three-village. I don't know. Can use this term? Three-village idiots, basically. Look like. So they always somewhere during the show, middle of the show, they will show up in one line, and they will say, "My name is Mike. This is my brother Dale, and that's my other brother Dale." Okay? So they all show up, and we get a really good laugh out of it, and that would be good entry star, right? So one time, and one of the guys, I've heard this before, but one time this guy at one of our seminar comes up to me and says, "You guys are Ashok. Are you guys brothers?" I said, "You mean like Daryl and Daryl?" And this guy went like. I felt so bad for this person, I never used the line again. So no, we are not Daryl and Daryl. So if there's any, and somebody else asked me a question. So what's the official count? I think 52, right? You PhD students. Yes. So 52 is the official count, even though I'm just a number. So who else want to talk about? Nick, you want to say something about Nick? Where's Nick? John, you want to? Come on.
Thank you. I put together a little something, and before I get into it, I want to say hello to everybody, especially to Ashok. And listening to all the previous speakers here, it's fascinating, having been around the world and working with executives in all sorts of companies everywhere, an individual like Ashok is truly a remarkable person. The university has no idea how lucky they are to have him. Very open-minded, follows all the different trajectories in research and wants to study and learn new things. He's more enthusiastic about getting knowledge than I was at the time, and he instilled that in me. And I'd like to try a little bit of comedy if I can. I don't know if I'm very good at it, but I'll give it a shot. So today I'm still wearing the smile that you left with me on my graduation day back in 1989. And in spite of many recommendations to the contrary, I went out into the real world because I couldn't wait for success, so I just went ahead without it. So I learned 7 important lessons over the years. One is the only place where success comes before work is in the dictionary. And you'll find an important key to success under the alarm clock. Okay, and that's related to the fact that the Lord gave us 2 ends, one to sit on and one to think about. And depending on which one you use the most will determine how much success that you actually have. Okay, also experience is the only school with which no one graduates. You are learning and taking tests there your entire life, and probably missing classes and flunking some of your exams, and probably frequently, but it never ends. Remember, if at first you don't succeed out in the real world, then please find out if the loser gets anything. People who think they know everything are a great annoyance to those of us who do, right? A man who has never gone to school may rob and steal from a bank, but if he has a university degree, he probably owns the bank. In all sincerity, if I had a penny for every time I appreciate Dr. Agarwala, I'd be a millionaire, no doubt about it. And also, thanks Ashok for continuing the tradition of being older than me. Finally, I want to thank my speechwriters, copy and paste. Thank you very much for listening to me. I appreciate it. It's my attempt at humor. As you can tell, I don't have a Ph.D. in that.
Thanks. Who else wants to? Come on.
Hello, I'm Vijay. I'm not a student of Ashok. I met Ashok through Ben Schneiderman when my daughter was at the computer science at the Center for Young Children. Ben used to, students would teach stories at the CYC. So over 20 years, she stayed at college. So she was a little terrapin who spent a lot of time on campus. So my job as dad would come over and hang out with her. And the person she enjoyed the most was Ashok. So she did her work with Ashok. 20 years of University of Maryland was not enough because she would come and enjoy the coffee and the stories he would tell her. And of course, he would use her and teach her communications that she could understand. But I came from the Naval Research Labs to pay the bills. So Gautam Trivedi introduced Ashok formally from NRL. So my job was from the government, pay the checks, so that Ashok's students made the most. So I had 2 students that Ashok had from my family. So I'm here representing the kids. Ashok, we enjoyed the time with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Vijay. Who else? So Ron Lars, so we decided, what was the number decided for you? Number 4. Oh, it was number 4.
Ashok came here in 71. I came here in 72. Unlike Glenn, who knew exactly what he wanted to do, I didn't have a clue what I wanted to do. But one of the things that I learned very quickly about Ashok was not only that he was a brilliant scholar, but that he was a wonderful human being. So as a relatively new Ph.D. student, feeling fairly aimless at that time, one of the first things he did was invite my wife Lyda and I and our kids over to his house in Silver Spring. And there we met Manish and Pico when they were small and growing themselves. And I remember them all playing in the backyard of that wonderful Silver Spring House at that time. We met, of course, his beautiful, lovely wife, Radhika. We had maintained that kind of relationship throughout our entire lives, and it's been truly memorable. Edika, I remember being at your wedding. At the time, I had to admit that a 3-day wedding was something that was kind of beyond my comprehension. But I should but the aspect of Ashok that I will always remember was that humanity. The way he reaches out to people, has a wonderful sense of humor. But I probably spent more time at his house just as a friend and as an informal colleague than any other faculty member I've ever dealt with. In addition, the clock never seemed to matter to Ashok. I'd spend countless hours in his office. He'd be standing up at a blackboard. We'd be scribbling various things to each other. Time would fly. Pretty soon, we'd finished off the coffee. We finished off the chalkboard. And hours had gone by. And I don't know how he finds the time to invest that kind of time in each of his students, but he finds a way to do it. So Ashok, Manish, Edika, thank you all. It's been a ride.
Thank you all. I have to share so many pros of business that I got from Ashok that I still adopted in my life. Like, one of the things is, those of you who haven't heard Ashok, you know how hyperkinetic it is about constantly perpetual motion guy. Can't really sit still. Got to move by. Not only that, but one of the things I learned from him is watching him that I use to do it now. Every my kids give me tell you this, and that is that somebody will come to him and says, "Sure, if I come to him and say, sure, how about I want to get together with you sometime and to talk through this stuff." He says, "When?" I said, "Next week." "No, can't do next week." He said, "Next week on account. How about this week?" What do people typically say? "Not next week, how about the following week?" No, we'll say, "What about this week?" I said, "This week I'm not busy the next couple of days." He said, "How about today?" I said, "You know, I got classes." He said, "Well, we're talking right now. We're talking right now." That's a trick that I've taken from him. I don't know if I drive people crazy enough. I always prepone things, never postpone stuff. It drives me crazy when people postpone stuff. I always prepone stuff. Who else wants to talk? Come on in.
I feel like people in this room probably either know me very well or not at all. And my relationship with Ashok is something that I recently had the opportunity to reflect on during the hallway track of an NSF panel this past year, where, as seems to be the case at a lot of these, we were talking about how can we get more people who are doing these different kinds of insert your adjective for interdisciplinary to do this work, apply for this grant, etc. And it reminded me of the extreme risk Ashok took when I called into his office as a sophomore, junior in college, and told him I had this crazy idea about computer science and law and policy in the 1990s. There weren't a whole lot of people doing things like that. Unlike most of the other very well-intentioned attempts that others I reached out to had offered to help me think about what to do with this, Ashok just took it as, hey, you've got a good idea. I'm going to figure out a way to mentor you and help you and advance your career in this regard. And he did. He put together a panel of people from 2 departments on this campus, which they had never actually done anything together before. So I could do a joint undergraduate honors thesis, something that continued as a joint thing all the way through now. I'm going to be a little careful. One of my former deans is in the room. And after I finished graduate school, I came back to DC, and for reasons past my understanding, Ashok invited me to come work in his lab as a postdoc. And I was having a little bit of trouble with the last chapter of my dissertation. I wanted to do some kind of quantitative analysis that everyone told me was just going to be too hard, and don't do this, you're not going to be able to. So I began about a month before I officially started, and I walked up to Ashok's office, and I was supposed to be finishing my dissertation before I started. And I'm just like, I think I'm going to have to drop this chapter. And he takes 3 hours out of his day and helps me figure out how to apply some form of applied math that I may have never seen before, but he explained it to me. I presume something he studied in graduate school. That solved a problem that nobody else had been able to figure out for 3 or 4 years. The biggest thing I've noticed about Ashok over the years, and I would not be standing here today or even remotely where I am in my career if he had not had many of those extended informal advising sessions. The biggest thing that I've noticed is just your dedication to people that need help. There's about probably 100 other stories like that I could tell, so I won't tell all those. But I will tell and close with the other lesson I learned, which is never accept a direct challenge from a Ashok if he's like half joking. You're gonna lose. So I got into graduate school, my last semester of college. I had not yet taken a classroom course with Ashok. I'd done research with him, I was getting ready to defend my undergraduate honors thesis, I was excited. And I said, Ashok, I want to take your class. He said, okay. But I'm going to grade you like one of my doctoral students. I was like, oh, I got this. Totally got this. I assume there's some people in here who are familiar with what the curves looked like in the late 90s in computer science in Maryland. I believe there were some classes where the highest A was about 50 numerically. So I was really, really proud when I got an 87. I had 87% of the points in this class. I did not get an A in that class. You kept your promise. And to this day, I think I got a B or a B plus. B plus. He remembers.
At least you remember.
It's the grade I'm most proud of in my entire career. And Ashok, you were making a point, someone else made this point earlier, it's not just to do well enough, not just to do what everyone else is doing, but to do the best. And I didn't earn 90% of the points in that class. But don't accept a challenge from Ashok unless you're prepared for what it's going to be. Ashok, thank you so much for everything you've done for, I don't even know how many years now. I don't have the words to express how much it's meant to me. Thank you.
I'm sure we all have stories about the exams and so forth. You know, one of my biggest sports that I had during my graduate student days, I want to go to 6 o'clock. Theory of operating system. You guys took that? So that course, we got open book exam. Company myself, Professor Agrawala here, and that was the most torturous exam I ever took. If I can still probably get nightmares one of these days. Wake up and say, well, it's due tomorrow. And not knowing, I said, oh, that's pretty cool. It's an open book exam. But no, you couldn't really solve the problem by looking at the book. And that was challenging. Who else would I talk to? Anybody else? Oh, come on.
Yeah, you kind of called me out, so I had to come up and say something. But yeah, I'm not going to be here tomorrow. I'm sorry. I got to teach 11 9-year-olds how to play American cricket, so that's why I can't play. But I want to say 3 quick things. The graduate class teaches information-centric system design. How many times have I come back? Maybe like 3 or 4 times?
Something like that.
Yeah. I promise you to come back twice this year. Maybe come back twice next time. But I love lecturing in class. I love following along what the students are doing. It's one of the most exciting classes to kind of take because of the way he challenges you to think. It's unlike any other class. Secondly, it's your fault for why I drink coffee now.
I accept full responsibility for it.
Yeah. I learned how to drink coffee, and I learned that humans always take the middle option. And lastly, there was one thing you said to me, I think like once or twice. I tell a lot of people this. I'm probably going to get it wrong, so correct me. You said, in undergrad, we teach you. As a master's student, we teach you how to learn. And as a Ph.D., we teach you how to think. So it was the right mentality that I took through graduate school, and I'm not a professor, I'm just a boring industry engineer. But I say the same thing to all of my employees and people I work with. So it's a very profound perspective. So again, sorry I'm not going to be here tomorrow, but thank you for everything.
Anybody else? So, all right, so I'm going to volunteer. There you go. Come on, Kimberly. So, you heard my story, this last. It's not only I got some stories. This is my lovely wife, Kimberly Teresia. She got story.
So Ashok, you've heard this one already, and I want to share it yet again. Yes, as Ashok mentioned, I am married to him. I'm I'm Kimberly Teresia, I'm sorry. So I met my now husband, Ashok Teresia, after I graduated from University of Maine. So we're still U of M family. And I had a computer science degree and a minor in EE. At the time when I graduated in '83, I was down in the Boston area looking for a job because I really needed to have a job. I was desperate. I knew how to do Fortran. I thought Fortran was the coolest thing, and I also had 1 semester in queuing theory. I had 1 semester in differential equations. So I ended up interviewing with a small company called BGS Systems in Waltham, Massachusetts. They hired me. They needed a Fortran programmer. I could talk queuing theory, and so that allowed me to get into the job, which was wonderful. Ashok at the time was not there. And we decided there's a reason why he wasn't there when I interviewed, because unbeknownst to me, he had graduated the year prior with a Ph.D. in queuing theory. And we're convinced that had he been there, he would have been able to basically out me and say, nah, you don't know what you're talking about. So when he came back, he needed a Fortran programmer to work for him. I had just been hired, hey, great, we got somebody to work for you, why don't you come and work with him? So I'm not going to bore you with all of the first dates down to Newport News and the conversations we'd have about lunch going across the street and how we really loved Maryland. Now, mind you, I grew up in New England, so Maryland to me was foreign territory. Y'all are below the Mason-Dixon line. I don't know nothing about Maryland, but I knew he really wanted to come back here. And I won't bore you with the fact that I knew he was from India, didn't know anything in my mind about Christmas, so I showed up one day, a Christmas tree in my hand, and said, here. But I also knew that he was serious about coming back to Maryland. And at one point, it really did become, yes, we are coming, so we had to come to Maryland. Since I am New Englander, I don't know anything about Maryland. Back in the day, it was you hired a headhunter for you, and the headhunter lines up all these job interviews, and I was like, don't know anything about Maryland. But I made a bunch of job interview reservations down here in the state, and they were like 1 week, and I came down here alone. And I didn't think anything of it except that my husband, well, he wasn't my husband, however, the gentleman I was dating said, you need to go and meet Professor Agrawala. I was terrified. This man was a living legend. I have heard about Ashok Agrawala for years, not years, but months that we were dating. Ashok T was going to start a company, this is his professor, how he demanded this, that, and the other thing. My date was telling me to come to Maryland and meet this man who was a living legend in my mind. I really was terrified. I picked up the phone, I called him. He said, sure, come on to University of Maryland. Now, Maryland is different now than it was 40 years ago, however, still, it's a big campus compared to what I was used to, so I drove up here, parked my car, still terrified, walked into Professor Agrawala's office and thought, if in any way, shape, or form this doesn't work, I'm out of here. Because what you may not understand is that Ashok was the first from his family to come from India. All of his family is in India, so in my mind, Professor Agrawala was Ashok's father. Now, I'm coming to meet Ashok's father. So, of course, I was terrified. Didn't know the man, don't know University of Maryland, don't know Maryland. So I'm only here for a week, and let me just tell you, coming from the Boston area, my first time hitting, I'm deviating slightly, my first time actually getting on the 495, in Boston you don't look. You're coming into traffic circle, you just go. Everybody else gets out of your way. I just remember still to this day, I was on the ramp to get on the 495, I slowed down because the 495 traffic has the right of way. The guy on the 495 slowed down. I slowed down. He slowed down. Finally, we merged. Anyway, I deviated. So it's a totally different culture as far as that's concerned. And again, I was invited to come to Professor Agrawala's office. He, as you all are aware, was an amazing individual, met me, made me feel really comfortable. I felt like I was meeting, like I say, Ashok's father, and I felt like it was a test I had to pass. He's been part of our lives ever since, so I passed. Thank you, I love you.
There you have it. Any more stories? Before I begin, I really want to thank some wonderful people who organized this thing. And it was not me. It was definitely not me. So, starting over there, Miriam. Miriam, thank you so much. Richard Arthur. Richard left. Oh, sorry, Richard had to go. But please pass that thank you to her, Richard. And the guy behind the camera over there is Tom Holden. Fantastic. And last but not least, my co-host here, Ming Lin. Ming Lin, come running. Silver woman. And of course, our host, Meredith. Thank you very much for your support to make this possible. Okay, at this time, I'd like to invite Ashok. Please come on and see if you can say a few words.
First of all, let me thank Ming and Ashok for what wonderful job they've done. Second, I hope you guys have next few hours free, because once you get a professor going, minimum time is 75 minutes. But I'm going to share with you the stories that nobody can verify. None of you were around at that time. To start with, I want to share that I arrived in this country in 1965 to go to graduate school. And from India, from one of the top institutions in India, I had applied to a bunch of schools, and I got admitted at MIT, at Harvard, at Berkeley, and some other places, I don't even remember. All places were offering me $2,000 scholarship, except Harvard was offering me $3,760. So the choice was obvious. Why go to MIT when you can go to Harvard for $3,760? Only when I went there, I found out that they took $1,760 back in tuition. So it was the same $2,000. But yes, folks, there was a time in this country when Harvard charged $1,760. So I'm a product of that time. When I was leaving Cambridge, I was there for a few years, I was convinced that there was no place in the world I was going to like as much as I liked Cambridge. That was 50 years ago. And as some of you may have heard me mention, it is our responsibility, I believe, to create the environment that we like. And the best place to work is the one in which you can create the environment that you like. And that's what Maryland was for me. Thanks to Naveen, thanks to all the other kinds of people that were there. Giving you a little bit of background about my education. I started out with electrical engineering, electrical technology. So I used to work on 220 and 440 volts type of machinery. And the best way to find out how hard it was to touch it. I got a lot of shocks. From there, I went to, again back in India, to masters in applied electronics and servo mechanisms. I burned my fingers on soldering iron often enough in that process. After that, I came to Harvard, and I was in the control theory group. So I took courses in control theory, courses in physics, courses in mathematics. But when it came to dissertation, my advisor, Professor Y.C. Ho, one of the legendary people in the country. By the way, at his retirement party, the vice premier of China came just to attend that. That's the kind of legend he is. Anyway, he was into pattern recognition, so one of the first things that he wanted me to do was to write a survey paper with him. Came out in 1968 or so. But then, my dissertation was on what we call machine learning these days. So folks, I've been around in machine learning circuits for a long time. Then, I started working at Honeywell. Partly when I was a graduate student, I started working at Honeywell in the optical character recognition department of applied research group. And we built a prototype of a machine that could recognize printed characters. And this applied research lab actually implemented that in hardware, where the hardware of that was about that tall, that wide box, all in semiconductors, at that time transistor-based and all of that. Based on that, Honeywell decided to do a product development and locate that in Minneapolis. Folks, all that time, I had been strictly a Fortran programmer. It's a different matter that in 1967, 68, I was doing interactive programming at Harvard, using regular terminals and all those kinds of things, but Fortran program. At Honeywell, my personal computer will fill up a room because I had to fill up all the tape drives and I have to go to the decks and all those kinds of things. But then, as it happens, I ran into Levine, and before I knew it, I was here. I came to Maryland and joined here, and that was in 1971. And at that time, there was no Department of Computer Science. There was only Computer Science Center. And that center was offering the computing service to the whole campus and offering graduate program in teaching. So they had educational program and research plus services. It was in 1974 that the whole university was reorganized and all the education and research part was taken out from Computer Science Center and moved into the Department of Computer Science. Both the units were occupying the same building, Computer Science Center building. That's what it was called. And folks, it took us a long time to get the name change of that building. Because even when we moved out of there into A.V. Williams, anytime anybody asked for where the Department of Computer Science was, everybody will point them to Computer Science Center building. Anyway, that's a side story. Clearly, there were all kinds of conflicts between the department and the center. Center was run by a director, department by department head. And I got involved in trying to resolve some of those. And I can say that, yes, folks, when there are conflicts, even on campuses, they can be resolved. One of the major parts of that afterwards was my persuading Glenn Reichert to come and join as the director of Computer Science Center. We modified the computing scene on this campus completely after that. But these kinds of conflicts come about regularly pretty much on campuses, and that's how things go on. Now, as Ashok or many mentioned, that I've worked in so many areas in computer science. Let me tell you what the secret was. When I came here, I was a programmer. I didn't know anything what was inside the computers. First semester, I was asked to teach a course in computer organization. There were no books. There was no other text around. So I was attending the other section, learning the material, and teaching in mind. And hoping and praying that the other guy doesn't get sick. So that's how I survived. Further fun part was that this was the time when lunar landing was coming to an end, and a lot of people were finding other occupations to do. So in the class, half the people were older than I was, and knew more about whatever subject I was talking about than I did. So I became humble very, very fast. Soon after the department was formed, I was given a very clear message by our esteemed chairman at that time, that with the legends like H.G. Roosevelt and Levine Canal around, I had no future if I worked in pattern recognition. So I better switch to computer systems. Okay? I didn't want to think about it. So I started learning. Only to find out that computer science is one of those subjects that you learn and in 3-4 years it changes. So I keep on changing as it changes. So that's how I've been covering all these different type of areas that I've been looking at. Among the early things that I worked on, Jeff Moore was a co-conspirator, one of the Nixon era terms. In workload characterizations, we were looking at the performance of mainframe computers. And so we'll go to different establishments, and one thing that just about everybody will do, every installation manager, is to take you to their machine room. And at that time, these were beautiful machine rooms, well enclosed in behind glass windows, nice air conditioned and all of that. But once you have seen one big room, you have seen them all. So what do? One thing I started doing was that whenever I go into those rooms, I go and physically touch every one of those disk drives. And if you remember or recognize, all those disk drives were the size of a washing machine. So I just go and physically touch those. So I remember at one time I was at a shop, and there was this elderly gentleman. And I went around to see touching all of these. And he was bewildered. So he says, "Hey, what are you doing?" I said, "Oh, buddy, it's an old Hindu custom to pay homage to all the disk drives." But that simple task resulted in many immediate advice, because you can easily detect which one is overloaded, things like that. One other interesting story I want to share, how I got my degree in applied mathematics. The day my professor was filling out the form for me to get the degree, he asked me, "Do you want your degree in engineering or applied math?" You know, at Harvard they don't have other departments and all of that. So I said, "I don't care." He said, "Okay, you are getting it in applied math." That's how I got a degree in applied math. Now, the follow-on story is that soon after I joined here, mathematics department started applied math program. And I am proud to say that the first Ph.D. to graduate in applied math program was my student. I was part of applied math faculty, probably I still am. They appointed a committee to formulate what applied math is. About 10 to 15 people in the room, and they were hotly debating what applied math is and what characteristics it must have. So finally I raised my hand and I asked, how many people here in the room have a PhD in applied math? Not one of them, except me. So then I told him how I got my degree in applied math. And the meeting was over. Nobody could talk about that. Well, folks, you were telling me stories from your side. I can tell you stories about every one of my students from my side. I won't bore you because that is with 52 students that will keep you forever. But the fact is that one of the basic principles that I have always followed is that it is not me that matters, it's the students that matter. I don't want to take pride in what I do. I want to take pride in my students, what they do. One of the stories I can tell you, my son Manish, you'll hear more from him tomorrow, he was working at Microsoft Research. And he quit from there and went to Berkeley. And after that, I went to visit Microsoft Research. And there, when they were introducing me, instead of introducing me as Professor Ashok Agrawala from the University of Maryland, I was introduced as Manish's father. My God, my chest just blew up at that point. But the point I want to make is that I have always followed the basic principle that I have mentioned to many of the students, that we have a very clear division of responsibility. Your job is to dream big, and my job is to provide as many resources and help as I can for you to realize your dreams, not my dreams, your dreams. Now, in the process, I may influence your dreams, that's besides the point. As I keep saying, I'm good at brainwashing, converting people. About brainwashing, I've been thinking that I should patent a shampoo for that, but nobody has come up with a proper formula yet. But always I've tried to maintain the focus on what is best for my students. Now, at the university, my basic principle in functioning has always been what is best for the university, for the college, for the department. And I had my share of fights on that. Because I am a firm believer that the basic power at the university lies with the faculty and then with the students. So if we commit to do, let's go ahead and do it. That's how I have lived my life here. Anyway, folks, I will have some more occasions to tell you more stories. So this was the student-oriented story session. Okay? Thank you so much. And I really feel honored to be all the comments.
There you go. Thank you, Professor. One more time. Professor Agrawala. Oh, there you go. There are the pictures. I want you to take off from message. Obviously, the message that I should have provided and some stories that I've heard. But one message from me is that the same has to be there. More five behind you, 500 you. See if you can take a challenge on and stay in touch with those folks. Second one is we use our China scholarship here. Please, we do all the help we can. We really have to make the goal. Did we provide the platforms, all that kind of stuff. Please, on the way out, if you're going to have a platform, we'd love to have your contribution on the scholarship. Let's make it a special one. And I have a tomorrow program. Tomorrow, we have two events going on. One is the celebration. There's a lot of people will hear from Ashok's life, not the students. This was very intimate. Students are gathering. So we have that. And then we'll have a technical workshop. We're going to go through about a dozen or so different topics, and then be some representative of the students that you have identified, and we're talking about those topics. And it'll be a lot of fun, a lot of inspiration for people to see how we got into those topics and where they might lead to. I think that's the thing we're trying to accomplish, is to see if you can see 50 years of history and try to read that history and maybe extrapolate in your head saying, I wonder what the 50 years look like next. If you were a new faculty who just came in, or you graduated Ph.D. this year, imagine what the 50 years will look like in the future, and then looking back. And I think that will be the interesting part that we're going to be trying to capture. Liv, you have anything to say?
Yes. So as this evening is coming to the end, I recognize that many of you are probably in this building for the first time. This is the Virginia Degree Center of Computer Science and Engineering. And this building was just opened in 2019, as Matthias mentioned. And we have a very special features. Other than the beautiful lobby, we also have a rooftop garden with a little fountain waterfall. So we would like to invite you, if you have a few minutes, to take the elevator up to the 5th floor and then take either the staircase or the elevator to just enjoy your sunset before it's gone. It's more like sunlight. Just take a look from the rooftop. The view is gorgeous. So before you head out, take a detour up to the rooftop.
You don't find that around here. That kind of feature in this building.
It is a very unique feature. So if you get a chance, please join us up to the rooftop. And, okay, so we will continue tomorrow. All right. Thank you. We'll see you tomorrow.